champion Pecco Bagnaia, the man that still sits atop of the Premier Class title chase, Jorge Martin. And it all kicks off this weekend here at the iconic Phillip Islands, the Qatar Airways Australian Grand Prix, the official start of the run-in from here through to the middle of November in around a month's time, where our world champion will be crowned. Your guess at this moment is just as good as myself, Jack Appleyard, and Simon Crafars, because as we often tell you, there is nothing more unpredictable than MotoGP, and coupled with that, there's nothing more unpredictable than Phillip Island. Simon, I think we're going to be in for a cracker of a weekend. It's the place that we come to every year with real expectation, real hope, real optimism that we're going to get a five-star race, and more often than not, this place delivers.
It really does, and part of the reason, and I think it'll be the same this year, is tyre life. You can't hammer down and go for the whole race, no way. I mean, you can't many places, but here it is so hard on rear tyres that it's why we see people managing it all the way till about 5 laps to go. And what that does is you have to manage the tyre to leave enough to fight at the end. And the ones who are not as fast can burn a little bit more rubber and still be in the fight. You know, early on, they'll get dropped in that battle at the end, but it causes this big group, and it's wonderful to watch, you know, in past years. So they'll all be doing the same sort of lap times in that group, but you know, some are doing it more like this, using more tyre, and others are really managing. That's why they can stay with them. And then there's the big fight at the end. And it really is, it's like throwing the dice. You're not sure who's going to come out on top in the fight, you know. So, I mean, I love it. I wish all races were like this, you know, a bit of management and a fight at the end, you know, between a lot of riders. With the new surface, it should, I mean, I've already explained what it traditionally is, make that twice as bad, meaning tyre life could be even halved. Wow. You know, with a new surface, if it's aggressive like it has been in the past. And I say that because Superbikes had trouble.
Yes, yeah.
They had to run two, you know, like a pit stop, you know, 2 tyres. And if that sort of thing happens, I mean, Michelin has had some time, you know, no doubt they've brought tyres. We'll be asking Piero tomorrow on the live what they've brought and but the problem is tomorrow they won't be able to test them if it's raining. And so this is going to be wide open. Okay, if it's dry on Sunday, and here we go, and that happens, we have a dry race, they all go, we're going to watch them manage it for sure. And so I would say the strong ones, like always recently, is the GP24s. I mean, Anea is so good at managing the rear tyre, isn't he? You know, everywhere. And, you know, Jorge Martin, Pecco are consistently the fastest. You know, they've got the fastest machines and they're riding them fastest. You can see this group here that's caught Jorge, who ran the soft tyre last year, and they're going to blow on by him because it's dead at this stage of the race. But the big thing for me is that new surface is going to throw it wide apart, more so, and I really think that it's going to be less of a difference at a guess for the GP23s. So I would put them in that group. And Marc is so clever, so experienced, and so good at the fast stuff. And it's a left-hand circuit, you know, which he's so good at. And so if you put all that together, I think it's going to be the GP24s and Marc in there. And I would love to see an Aprilia or a KTM in that group, you know. So, yeah, I really think it could be a super exciting Sunday.
Yeah, we've got all of the ingredients going into this weekend of it being a real cracker, one that you do not want to miss. It always is the case here at Phillip Island, but even more so for the reasons that Simon just explained. We come into this weekend, 4 rounds remaining. This, of course, round 17 of a 20-round World Championship with 10 points in it now. Bagnaia's 8th win of the season. An incredible feat. Only the likes of Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, Marc Marquez have been able to achieve 8 Grand Prix wins in a single season, but he's still not leading the World Championship, remarkably. It just shows the level of those two that we've seen throughout this first part of the World Championship.
So I have to apologise. My jet lag, I woke feeling brilliant this morning at 3 o'clock and I haven't slept since. And now I've gone... So you were talking about Pecco?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, because I'm like drifting off. I do that anyway, but I'm so tired. Pecco is... perfection so often this year. I mean, in Sunday in Japan, we saw him doing that, just wonderful from the start and gone and managed it. We never saw what he had left because he didn't fully get pushed, He was really, really good. And I was hoping we would see the young Spaniard, who's right behind him on screen right now, push him, give him a hard time. And I really hope that happened. I'd even put some money on Pecco winning it after being so fast through that whole weekend. It wasn't to be, but Pecco just put it all together, and there's no taking it away from that man. He just put everything together again.
And this weekend feels like it's for both of those guys when they've been pretty much on the podium together. It feels every weekend the points have been moving 5 in one direction, 5 the next. But this is a place this weekend where there's going to be a lot more people in the mix, and there could well be a bigger point swing this weekend, which come Valencia could be crucial, especially we look at Buriram, Malaysia, Valencia, the rounds that are coming up after this, where I think we're all expecting that both Pecco and Jorge are going to be certainly up there challenging for the win, given their records at that place. But here in particular, it feels like it could be a crucial one, with the weather maybe playing its own sort of course as well.
Well, the weather makes it risky to get to Sunday where the big points are. So you could, it's super fast. Like I was saying earlier, there's 200 kilometre an hour corners. For me, who I no longer race, on a stock bike, you imagine what they're doing through there, and we're going to have wind, rain, and you've got to get through all of that safely before you have the chance of getting the big points on Sunday. Then in Sunday's one, like you've pointed out, there's going to be, I believe, a bigger group of riders, and that gives more chance of riders between those, which I think you're pointing out.
Yeah.
And this is brilliant. And also, if you don't manage tyres right, we don't know what's going to happen yet, exactly, who chooses what, or if they're all on the same super strong. Whenever that happens, if it's super strong to handle this tricky, brand new abrasive surface, it normally means lower grip as well. So then you've got to manage that. It's like anything can happen, really. You could make a big mistake and lose a lot of points, like you said.
And we imagine that not only Pecco Bagnaia will be in the mix, but as will the World Championship leader Jorge Martin, with our production guys just telling me after I told you earlier on how spectacular a day it has been here at Phillip Island. The rain that we expected to come tomorrow has arrived now, and unfortunately it looks as though that's going to be set in for the next 24 hours. We saw the highlights of last year's race. Any chance that Jorge Martin runs the soft on Sunday again? What a decision that was 12 months ago. But he's been telling us just how much more relaxed, just how much more centred and focused he feels now, 12 months on in this World Championship fight. I would be surprised if he's to make a decision like that this time around.
Well, the thing is, I think that decision is going to be taken away anyway because of the surface.
Yeah.
You're going to have to run something strong to handle it. Basically, the new surfaces are more aggressive, and this, you put that on a layout that is high speed, on throttle, so it's already brutal on tyres. So you add that extra aggression on the tyre from the new surface. There's no way you'll be able to run a soft one, and it's going to be strong compounds, which means low rear grip, easier to make a mistake, fall, for example. And again, who's good at managing those tricky things. He's the most experienced man on the grid.
Yeah.
And and successful, and so there's going to be a bunch of riders in the mix.
I think we have to speak about this performance from Jorge 2 weeks ago. We were just speaking then about the reformed character that he believes he is now after work with a sports therapist over the winter months. Qualifying 11th, having the disaster that he did on Saturday morning, to come away with 2 podium finishes and not making a mistake that I think some of us may well have expected maybe 1-2 years ago. Just shows the calibre of Jorge Martin this year.
He managed the 11th on the grid,
Yeah,
through to second, and look how close. Brilliant job. Yes, Pico was doing a bit of management, but he had to push on. They were doing really good lap times, and I think Jorge mentioned it, I fully believe this, that basically coming through from 11th, you burn more tyre trying to overtake, because you need to accelerate off the corner to get up beside someone that eats extra tyre. I think he had less to fight with at the end.
he says it's 50-50 in the World Championship fight, Jorge Martin.
Yeah, I'm with him.
Agree. Marc Marquez went 55-45 in favour of Jorge, given that 10-point advantage.
Yeah, but I just think places like this, and then we would get to Asia, where it could bucket down.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it reduces that 10 points too, because it's so easy to lose a big lump, like you pointed out.
Let's speak about one rider who walked away quite amazingly from Japan with no points to show for it whatsoever, but that doesn't tell the full story of what a performance we saw from Pedro Acosta at the Japanese Grand Prix, becoming the third youngest pole man in MotoGP history. Wasn't able to back that up on either Saturday or Sunday, but after a dip mid-season where I think he will admit, the team will admit, they lost their way a little bit. The emergence of this new chassis, which he's been using for the past 3 rounds, which has clearly had a big impact. Acosta's going to be a real problem for those guys fighting for the World Championship from now until the end of the season, you feel? I'm
very excited about Pedro, because that boy is really coming. To me, he found something. I'm not sure if it's 3 races. I think he got given it in Indonesia, I believe.
Did he run it? I think he had it at the Misano test and then used it for the first time at the second Misano race.
Right.
But then it was only revealed to us by Nico Goyon in Indonesia that he had it. But I do believe it was on the bike for that round at Misano.
Okay. So apparently Brad didn't like it. You know, different styles, different. He tried it and loved it. Said, no, I believe he's first on it in Indonesia, because I remember why now. He said that I tried something new. He wouldn't say what it was in Indonesia, but it was tricky in the sprint because I hadn't had time to set it up. And when he said, because it's a different chassis with different weight, you need to do the fine tuning to get the balance of the bike right, because the balance is different. Then he came out even stronger on the Sunday because they'd had time to balance it a bit better, and he was brilliant on the Sunday, and I really hoped he could do the same this Sunday, and he blew it again. But for me, it's so exciting because he's found a tool that helps him use his strengths, and I genuinely believe that Pedro Acosta is going to be at the front for the rest of the year, more or less. When I say more or less, occasionally, something goes wrong, but I really think every weekend he's going to be really competitive, and that, to me, for the championships, so exciting, because he's an exciting young man, and it's great to have another one in there.
Yeah, and great to see a non-Ducati in there as well, because the domination that they've had this year, taking nothing away from Gigi Dall'Igna and a Bologna factory, already wrapped up the manufacturer's title once again on a completely different planet to everybody else. But we like to see other people up there challenging them, and Pedro is certainly going to provide that for us.
I mean, Ducati's competitiveness, their great work is making it more boring, and it's not their fault. They're just doing their jobs so well that it's making it more boring for us to watch, So we need the others to fight back and get back in there. And Pedro's brilliance is allowing that, now that he's found that tool with the chassis. But I'm really excited because he is the new superstar. I really believe it, and he's not going to disappear. He's only going to come forward to keep going, and if KTM give him what he needs, he's going to start winning.
Interesting with that new chassis as well. It does seem like Brad Binder will be trying it this weekend. As you said, tried it at the Misano test, didn't like it. Pedro Acosta did like it. Obviously his results speak for themselves. I imagine that the Austrians have said, well, you might not like it, but the timesheets suggest otherwise.
It's proven. So, to be fair to Brad, when you test something quickly, and obviously it wasn't tested thoroughly enough, like I said, sometimes something needs a different balance and you need to play with it to find the lap time. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
And obviously Pedro tried it and went, oh, it works with what I do. And they're very different riders, you know, how they use things. So this chassis worked with what Pedro does on the bike, but then had to fine tune it. Obviously Brad needs to get hold of that and play with it and find that strength that it allows, you know. So clearly it's helped front end because Pedro was so good. I saw it qualifying, I believe, and going for Q2 on Friday afternoon. I was like, wow, look at what he can do on the bike. And I spoke to him that night, press journalists all speaking to him, and he said, yeah, this allows me to use my strength, which is entry, and he looks amazing, as good as anyone breaking an entry.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be one to watch this weekend. Spoke to him earlier on today, said that Phillip Island, probably my favourite circuit on the calendar, so we're expecting big things, hopefully, from the young rookie hotshot this weekend. From one end of the experience scale to the other, one rider we feel that's going to be in the mix in Pedro Acosta. You've mentioned him, Marc Marquez. What an opportunity you feel he's got this weekend. In the fact that KTM can potentially get in the mix, you feel that those GP23s won't have that same deficit this weekend.
Yeah, one of the reasons I've always loved Phillip Island is that if you don't have the fastest machine, it doesn't matter as much, because the reason is it's more about rider skill, bravery, setup, because you're not stopping and starting where, for example, opposite of what we're doing in Japan, they're going to have very different setups on the bike, because in Japan you need hard front springs, you're just braking as hard as anywhere on the planet, and here you're barely braking. You know, really, probably the easiest braking circuit of the whole calendar, and you're flowing. And because you flow, you don't need as fast as engine, where the GP24 has its strength. And so that's why I believe the GP23s are going to be in the mix, but so's the Aprilia if they find the way, or KTM. You know, you don't see the deficit as much. It's more about rider confidence, feel in that front end to be able to fly through those turns and keep the rear tyre alive. You know, that's traction control and setup, etc. One more thing, I really think in the end this weekend's also going to come down to hitting the ground and running with minimum setup time, because you're going to lose a Friday by the sounds with weather. So there's people like, to me, top of the pile, who goes fastest straight out of the gate? Jorge Martin.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, no setup time, just jumps on his bike and brilliant, bang. And it's Pecco marches forward after he spends a bit of time setting up. Marc doesn't know the Ducati as well. He needs a bit more time but he is brilliant at adapting. So I wouldn't write Marc off in there. So it's really, really interesting, you know.
And Marc's record around this place speaks for itself. Phenomenal, the number of victories he's been able to pick up, normally in those tight pack fights from 2013 all the way through to 2019. And then, of course, a couple of years ago was very, very unfortunate not to have taken victory that day, with Alex Rins managing to come out on top. So regardless of the machinery, you do feel that Marc is going to be a huge contender this weekend.
Completely agree, because he's also got the experience of managing, you know, like so experienced. He knows how to manage things like rear tyres, when to fight. To me, he's the master tactician.
Yes.
I mean, he already plans the race in his head the night before. He knows what, if he does that, I'll do this, and I need to do this because of that. I think he goes into it mentally more than anyone else the night before the race, and so you've got to put Marc in that mix. And Jorge Martin, total opposite, just hit the ground running fast from the first dry session. He'll be brilliant, and everyone else will be trying to catch up. That's how I see it. And also, one other rider who's like that, if he's happy and the setting's good, is Maverick.
Yeah.
Maverick could hit, you know, if the Aprilia works around here, he could do something magic, you know, in the short dry period that we've got, get some results.
And another man with a really, really strong record at this place as well. Was very, very unlucky not to have won back in 2019. Of course, crashed on the last lap whilst trying to take victory away from Marc Marquez. Another rider that I'm sure a lot of fans here on the island are hoping will be up in that lead group is Jack Miller aboard the factory KTM. A huge weekend for him. There's going to be a lot of support, a lot of friends and family here. From what we've seen in recent weeks, is he starting to make enough progress where we think we can maybe see him in that lead group come Sunday?
All year, we've been like, where's Jack? You know, all year. And we saw it on the TV in Japan, the massive chatter, like it was like a judder, wasn't it? Bouncing off the ground, flexing the swing arm, and we're like, whoa, no wonder Jack hasn't been able to ride that thing all year, and we've all been kind of wondering where Jack is, and he's been mentioning the chatter, but so is everyone, you know. Ducati managed it the best, didn't they? That was the big thing, you know. The Ducati riders had it badly at the beginning of the year, and by Jerez, they changed a part on the bike, fixed the problem, and they've never looked back, where everyone else is still trying to find out how to get rid of this chatter. The thing is, it also affects different riders, because worse or less, because of, I believe, where they sit on the bike. Like Joan Mir's been having a nightmare. He sits back a bit more, you know, and so different riders are having different amount of problem. And I've got to say, we've all been doubting Jack. I've been like, where is? And we saw why he's having such a tough year on that KTM. And it'll really come down to if this circuit, if you got chatter, you can't go through those 200 kilometre an hour corners with confidence. So it's really important that they figure that out. Otherwise, we know he's a good rider. It's just he's shackled at the moment. You know, he's ball and chain. There's no way he can push to the limits of the other guys if he's got that chatter. Yeah,
it was fascinating footage to see. And I think Jack actually, in a weird way, was actually thankful to our camera guys have been able to spot it, because he was able to go to the crew. I remember being stood in the back of the box when he came in after the session, was screaming at TV saying, see, this is what I've been telling you all year.
To deal with that all year, and he's obviously been grumpy about it. And everyone doubt him, you know, teams, fans, us, me. And then we see it and we go, oh, that bad? Like, I've never seen it. So I hope they sort it out and we can see the Jack come back.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people, as we said, that are hopeful that the number 43 will be up there fighting this weekend. Just before we hand over to the press conference, the world champion, on time as ever, has made his way into the room, as you can see right there. Give us a wave, Pecco. Hello, how are you? Bring you up to speed with a little bit of news that we had earlier on today, Simon. Fabio Di Giannantonio was rumoured when we were last with you in Japan that potentially may miss this weekend and for the remainder of the season to have surgery on that troubled shoulder. Good news is we've got him for 2 more rounds. He's going to be taking part both this weekend and in Thailand before then going off for surgery. So we'll miss the penultimate 2 rounds of 2024. But it seems like the correct decision for Fabio, an issue that he's been suffering with day after day. It's going to be such a relief for him to get it sorted and be back fit for the start of 2025.
I was thinking about this in Japan when he first mentioned it, about taking some of the season off to get the shoulder fixed. And I thought, it's an absolute no-brainer. Yeah. He's got to do it. If he doesn't do it, he's silly. Because next year, the reason I say that, he's not in with a title fight this year. Next year, he's got a GP25. Mm-hmm. So the latest spec, the same as the factory, and he's the only other rider to have it. And it's his big opportunity. Why struggle for the end of this year with a dodgy shoulder on a GP23 when you've got that massive opportunity coming next year? Just go and prepare, get your body ready for it to have the best showing you can next year.
Yeah, absolutely. The right move, and from speaking to him earlier as well, all indications are they'll have that surgery in around 2 to 3 weeks' time, and he will be then at 100% fit by the time we're then back on bikes in February in 2025 at the Sepang test. But that's all to come next year. The good news is we've got Didier, who I'm sure is hoping for a good result this weekend. Debut podium 12 months ago. He's maybe one to keep an eye out on as well. As is, of course, it goes without saying, the big 2 in the MotoGP World Championship. The guys first and second at the moment who join us in the press conference room. We'll be cutting across to that in a moment, but not just yet, Simon, I've been told. So we'll speak about the mind games that Pedro Acosta has been asking for. Do you think we're going to see any here? I mean, you can see them chatting away at the moment.
I think the two of them really, sorry to butt in, but I think the two of them get on really well. I do, genuinely.
There's no animosity there at all, is there?
No. They're both professionals. They've been around each other for a long time, and they obviously respect. And, you know, there's, like you said, no animosity. So, yeah, I think it's, when I say that, I mean, press have tried to stir it up a little bit, but look at them. They're getting on great.
Yeah, we've tried and so far have failed miserably. These two, of course, were former teammates back in Moto3.
Yeah.
The Aspar squad.
Long history.
They have a really good relationship together. And the one thing we can be certain of, though, when it got to this time last year, I remember Qatar, for example, when the tensions do start to rise, there were some flashpoints on track, though. And certainly I think they might be coming over the next couple of weeks.
I think I clearly remember stating that end of the year, if it's close, it's just impossible to be good buddies, best buddies. You have to beat that. One guy will be looking at the other guy, you've got to beat him. Use anything you can, right? Even if you respect and like. But that last bit, it's gloves off.
We've spoken a lot about the 10-point differential between them. At this stage, when they've gone up against each other so often, does it actually matter right now who's the World Championship leader? Do you think that Jorge will feel slightly better having that small advantage?
Oh, for sure. It's a little buffer, but like I said, with this race being so wide open, and then we go to Asia where it could absolutely bucket down, you know, and with that, I think it's just so easy to make a mistake, you know, and it's wide open.
Yeah, a season of, or a championship of mistakes is what Pecco himself phrased it just 2 or 3 weeks ago, following yet another crash. This time it went in the favour of Jorge Martin on the opening lap of the sprint in Indonesia. You do feel there's going to be more of those moments coming, as you so often say, these guys at the limit so often that it is inevitable for stuff like that to happen. But let's hope that it doesn't happen this weekend, and we are treated for our first ever sprint here at Phillip Island after we didn't get to see it due to the weather last year. That's going to be definitely something worth tuning in for. And for the Grand Prix on Sunday, where we expect it to be an absolute blockbuster show, a 5-star thriller as the island normally produces. Let's see what the top two in the World Championship, the two men once again hoping to be crowned world champion, have to say as the run-in begins. 4 rounds in 5 weeks. Let's hear the thoughts of the contenders, Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia, alongside Matt Burt.